The Belgian police have arrested diamond merchant Mehul Choksi, one of the two prime accused in the $2 billion or almost 13,000 crore rupee Punjab National Bank fraud. Now, Choksi was arrested on Saturday at the behest of the Central Bureau of Investigation and is reportedly still in Belgian jail. Meanwhile, Indian investigating agencies sent a formal communique to Belgian authorities seeking Mehul Choksi's arrest after he had been spotted in that country. Meanwhile, my colleague Pablo Gutierrez gets us latest from Belgium.
Well, Mr. Mehul Choksi has been playing an international game of cat and mouse with Indian authorities over the last 7 years. He was, as you indicated at the beginning of your report, arrested in Antwerp this Saturday. Apparently, authorities were tipped off because some of the paperwork that he had submitted for his residency had anomalies. He had also failed to disclose his Indian and his Antigua citizenship. He became a citizen in Antigua in 2017. That is a year before the PNB fraud case broke out. He had also tried to stay for some time in the Dominican Republic. Authorities caught him trying to enter the country illegally, and he was deported back to Antigua. So as for now, he is currently in Antwerp awaiting the proceedings. There are two open warrants issued by a Mumbai court against him. And let's not forget that he still has significant resources. So his attorneys will likely fight his extradition on the basis of humanitarian needs, because it's been reported that he is here in Belgium to seek treatment for cancer conditions. So there's still a lot to happen in this case, but as of now, it appears this international game of cat and mouse is coming to an end here in the capital of Europe.
Ousted Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina tore into Mohammad Yunus-led interim government on Sunday, in fact branding him as a self-centered loan shark who plotted the country's downfall with foreign players to quench his thirst for power. In an 8-minute virtual address, she also raised doubts over what killed Abu Sayyed, the student protester who became a face of the resistance. Now, Hasina, who escaped to India last August fearing for her life, had vowed to return to Bangladesh days ago, saying that this was the reason, in fact, Allah had kept her alive. Addressing her supporters on Sunday, she also accused Yunus of erasing Bangladesh's history, especially those linked to the Awami League's contribution to the country's freedom struggle. Donald Trump has said on Sunday that he would be announcing the tariff rate on imported semiconductors over the next week, adding that there would be flexibility with some companies in the sector. Meanwhile, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has said that the administration's decision on Friday night to exempt a range of electronic devices from tariffs implemented earlier this month was only a temporary reprieve, with the secretary announcing that those items would in fact be subject to semiconductor tariffs that will likely come in a month or two, he said. On the other hand, EU Trade Commissioner Marcos Sefcovic will travel to Washington on Monday to hold meetings with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. China Xi Jinping begins a visit to Southeast Asia on Monday in an effort to strengthen Beijing's regional economic ties following U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff salvo. With stops planned in Vietnam, Cambodia and Malaysia, Xi is expected to cast China as a reliable trading partner in contrast to the unpredictability of Trump's Washington. But the three smaller nations must perform a diplomatic balancing act. Officials are likely wary of cozying up to China while pursuing trade deals with Trump. And they want to protect their domestic economies from a glut of cheap Chinese goods suddenly shut out from the U.S. markets. Even amid the chaos, no Southeast Asian country, in fact, has given up yet on its relationship with America. A new federal rule in the U.S. could dramatically impact millions of immigrants, both undocumented and those legally residing on student, work or travel visas. Under this new policy, any non-citizen over the age of 18 is now required to carry proof of registration at all times, regardless of their visa status. According to a new poll, Canadian Liberals continue to lead the federal election race at the halfway point of the campaign, but the Conservatives have narrowed the gap. The latest Ipsos poll exclusively for Global News shows 42% of Canadians surveyed would in fact vote for Liberals, down 4 points from last week, and the first time in fact since election began that the party has actually lost ground in these ratings. On the other hand of the aisle, the Conservatives are up 2 points at 36% currently. Ecuadorian voters vary of crime re-elected President Daniel Noboa, a conservative young billionaire with a divisive no-holds-barred crime-fighting record, by a wide margin Sunday. But this opponent vowed to seek a recount over what she described as grotesque electoral fraud. Figures released by Ecuador's National Election Council showed Noboa receiving 55.8% of the votes, with more than 92% of ballots being casted, while leftist lawyer and his competitor Luisa Gonzalez earned 44% of the votes. Council President Diana Atament said these results showed an irreversible trend in favor of Noboa. The win gives Noboa 4 years to fulfill the promises he first made in 2023, when he stunned voters by winning a snap election and a 16-month presidency despite his limited political experience. The US has deported 10 more alleged members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua and the Mara Salvatrucha to El Salvador on Sunday. The alleged members are promptly transferred to El Salvador's notorious Terrorism Confinement Center, or the CECOT prison. The deportation takes place while El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele is in Washington to meet US President Donald Trump at the White House the following day. The Trump administration has already sent roughly 260 deportees to El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center. Pennsylvania police said Sunday a man was arrested and will face charges including attempted murder, terrorism, and attempted arson in an early morning fire that badly damaged the governor's mansion and forced Josh Shapiro, his family, and even his guests to quickly escape. Sunday's announcement comes after Shapiro and his family were awakened by state troopers at around 2 a.m. and were followingly evacuated from the official governor's residence in the state capital of Harrisburg. Shapiro told an afternoon news conference that he, his wife, their 4 children, 2 dogs, and another family that had celebrated the Jewish holiday of Passover with his family at the residence on Saturday were in fact awakened by state troopers. No one was injured and the fire was extinguished, according to authorities. Listen in.
First, this type of violence is not okay. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay. And it has to stop. We have to be better than this. And we have a responsibility to all be better.
The US and Iran are set to hold a second round of nuclear talks this week after an initial meeting over the weekend that both sides described as being productive. The negotiations in Oman on Saturday, the highest level discussion between Washington and Tehran in years, displayed an effort to avoid what neither side wants, another war in West Asia. The next meeting could see progress on short-term agreements like Iran pausing uranium enrichment in exchange, of course, for relief for some maximum pressure sanctions. Now, Tehran is motivated to sustain the forward momentum. As per experts, the Iranian economy is hobbled by international restrictions and public discontent is also rising. Money is like ice, it melts very fast. This is the sentiment among some residents. The Trump administration has revived talks with Saudi officials over a deal that would give Saudi Arabia access to US nuclear technology and also potentially allow to enrich its own uranium. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said on Sunday. Now, the deal which the Biden administration had pursued as part of a broader agreement for Saudi Arabia to establish ties with Israel, in fact, would enable the kingdom to develop a commercial nuclear power industry. Mr. Wright told journalists in Riyadh. He added that he expected to see meaningful developments this year in 2025. India and Africa have launched a mega joint naval exercise in Africa. It is scheduled for 6 days and 10 nations are participating in this naval exercise. This is Africa-India key maritime engagement named Equime. And this drill will conclude on the 18th of April. The initiative aligns with the vision of the Prime Minister of India, PM Narendra Modi, in fact promoting mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across the region. Over to West Asia, an Israeli airstrike early on Sunday has incapacitated the last fully functioning hospital in Gaza City as the military expands and intensifies, in fact, its campaign across the enclave. Parts of the hospital, including the emergency room and the reception area, were extensively damaged. A devastating assault by Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF as they are called, on the Zamzam camp for displaced people near the Al-Fashar has left hundreds dead or wounded, the foreign ministry and aid groups have said, in what some also described as one of the worst violations since the war initially began.